important that I broadcast this message, continuing from where I left off in the last recording. This is part 2 of the laws that pertain to sanctification or cleanliness. Yes, we must sanctify ourselves. It's important that we do so. When we sanctify ourselves, we are holy. We are holy just as our holy ELOHIM, or Creator, as we would know it as, or understand it as. As I was mentioning in the previous recording, when a man and a woman becomes unclean, the man, or let me clarify, Leviticus 15 explains when a man and a woman becomes unclean, the measures they need to take to sanctify themselves or to cleanse themselves. When a man sees an unusual discharge coming out of his body, he is to set apart himself for 7 days. After the 7 days is fulfilled, he can worship or gather in ceremonial festivities. If sperm comes out his body, he has to wash himself, wash his body, wash the place where the sperm touches, whether it may be on a woman or any place where the sperm touches. It has to be washed. He himself has to be washed before the sundown the next day. Before the sundown of the next day. And afterwards, he's able to worship or gather in ceremonial festivals. A woman, when she's seen a cycle or her menstrual period, she's unclean. 7 days are put apart for her. And after those 7 days, she's able to worship or partake in ceremonial festivals. If the blood should go outside of the 7 days, she's unclean for that time. 7 days are put apart for her, that she is to be unclean until the 7 days are fulfilled. Then afterwards she can worship or gather in ceremonial festivals. This law and the principles that pertain to this law or command is important. Traditionally, in some African tribes today, one that I will mention, the Igbo tribe, they practice these laws or principles in their tradition. Traditionally, if a woman is unclean and see no menstrual period, the services she would do for her husband or man in terms of cooking and cleaning and preparing such things for a house is not to be done. She would separate herself and let the other wife that the man is married to, she shall do the services for him. And all these things that I mentioned. And even fulfilling the man's desires or pleasures as well, which is part of marriage. These traditions are what is practiced, and this is law, and the law and the traditions are one as well. Even going into the more principles as pertain to the law. If a woman gives birth to a man child or a woman child, she's unclean for that period of time. Leviticus 12, 1 to 6 explains, if she has a man child, she's set apart for 33 days. If she has a woman child, she's set apart for 66 days. After these days are fulfilled, she's able to worship and gather in ceremonial festivities. When a man and woman touches the dead, they are unclean. They are unclean for 7 days. When a man and woman touches a dead body or comes near a grave or a dead house, they are unclean for 7 days. They have to set themselves apart 7 days, and after 7 days are fulfilled, they become clean, where they can worship or partake in ceremonial festivals. And if anyone that touches a dead body or comes near a dead house or is inside a dead house or near a grave, touches one who may not be unclean, they become unclean, but they have to wash themselves before the sun goes down. This law is in Numbers 19. Numbers 19 is the correct chapter for these things I'm mentioning concerning this law. And then we have within sanctification. Examples of sanctification is in a time of, in Genesis chapter 35, 1 to 5. Jacob and his household, before they went to the altar to worship the holy Elohim or the Creator, they make sure, and Jacob instructed his household to wash themselves, change their garments, and they as well were to put away the strange gods from amongst them, so that they can be clean when they appear before the altar for worship. Exodus chapter 31, 13 to 16 mentions that the holy Elohim or the Creator is the one that sanctifies us. So when we are sanctified, we receive a sanctification.